Hi, everybody. I'm Abe Casbo. Welcome to Spot On. And with me is Chris Salierno. He is editor-in-chief of Dental Economics. Chris, welcome to the show.
Abe, I'm honored to be here. Love reading your material that you put out there. Love this, and I'm just excited to chat. I always have fun when you and I chat.
Oh, definitely, definitely. You're making me blush. You're making me blush. All right, thanks. The reason why, I called you a couple of weeks ago because I got an email from you.
Yes.
The email said something like, "Oh, if I had a dime for every time a marketer hit me up on LinkedIn,
I
what?"
could buy a marketing agency, is what I
Right,
said.
that's
Yeah.
what you said, right? Tell me about that. What's the deal with that?
Well, I think, and I'm sure this is not just for dentists. I'm sure many other verticals would go through this too. I'm sure of it, in fact. But dentists will know what I'm talking about. We get usually on LinkedIn, but it can also be emails and Facebook or whatever. But we'll get this request to connect, and then which is great. Extend that network, and then there's a pitch, and it's a subtle variation of the same pitch.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
I just loved your profile. It was just so good. Wow. And I was just wondering, are you accepting new patients? What
Right.
could you do with 60 new implant patients per month? What would that be worth to you? And then if you don't respond within like 24 hours, there's maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. I'm sorry. Were you not interested in
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
60 new
yeah.
patients per month? What's wrong with you? That kind of thing. And you're like,
Well,
really?
that's a bot, right?
Oh, it's gotta be. It's gotta be. Or just someone who's cutting and pasting a whole lot. But it is it's this marketing material that looks identical, which is kind of funny because you would think great marketing isn't identical to all of these other ones out there. But then also I love the rage that we didn't immediately respond to one of thousands of LinkedIn messages like this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I could tell you that I'm also a subject and a recipient of that kind of approach. Some people would call it abuse. But look, if you removed LinkedIn, right? You remember those faxes that dentists used to get? I mean, I think that, like
Hey, we
30
still get
patients,
them. We
30 days.
still get them.
You still get
We
them,
still
right?
get them.
So
Yes.
even if you took LinkedIn and social media out of the picture, right? There are people still marketing 30 patients in 30 days. And guess
Right.
what? They wouldn't keep doing it if it doesn't work.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So,
And
so who's the buyer? Like who's buying these things is my question to you,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
And dentists don't, like many folks, don't know enough about marketing. I think that they think marketing is just, oh, I throw money at a thing and then patients happen. Oh,
Yeah,
I buy direct mail or billboards or ads, and used to be ads in the yellow pages. That's their idea of marketing, is just this transaction
yeah,
where you pay someone to make patients happen.
yeah,
And yeah, at some level that is some of what happens. But I'm sure, like you, believe in this much grander topic of marketing. It's, how do I distinguish myself in the marketplace, in my community, as a dentist in this example? What is my unique selling proposition? Who am I building this practice for? A great marketer helps you think about these things. And once you start to answer those questions, you then start to realize what marketing decisions, what
yeah.
channels that you're going to spend money on, and or at least just effort in, which channels make sense or which are going to be a complete waste of time. But I agree. I think that there are marketers out there, just like there's great dentists and not so great dentists. There's not so great marketers out there that just do this shotgun approach. It's like the old thing, like, if you have a really terrible pickup line, like you only need it to work once, right? A night or whatever the hell,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, really? That's your approach? That sounds, depressing.
I want to go back and just talk about that point that you made earlier
Mm,
about how do we think more thoughtfully, or how do we take a more thoughtful approach to marketing, as dentists or DSOs or practice managers, right? And
mhm.
I think what you're Your approach actually takes time, right? Because that kind of thing takes time. And sometimes in our conversation with dentists, that element of time, look, let's think about it, right? It took 40 years for Coca-Cola to become a brand,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
It took 30 years for Starbucks to become a brand, right? So branding and figuring out your market and all of that takes a lot of time. It's actually a result of what you do. It's not like a branding program, which is constantly sold into healthcare, dentistry, and dermatology, which I found is just outrageous, right? Because that's the kind of thinking that leads you to, the LinkedIn stuff, the 30 patients in 30 days. And from a strategic perspective, no business says, here's a faucet and we're going to turn it on and here come the customers, or here come the patients, or here come the clients.
I think it's just because we're taught many, many things in dental school, but basic business, profit and loss statements, that's obviously not one of the many things we should be taught. We're not taught how to be small business owners, but even so, I graduated in 2005. I mean, my father's a dentist, my uncle's a dentist. I just always assumed that you open a dental practice, and yeah, if you're a general dentist, you might do a little more cosmetic dentistry, or you might do a little more of this. Maybe you don't like seeing kids so much, but
Hmm.
there wasn't this thoughtful brand of what your practice was going to be, who you were, who your team what was going to be, and the
Right.
target markets you would serve. It was just a dental practice. So I think if and I think a lot of dentists still think that way. As I lecture around the country, around the world, and I talk to dentists, and we start to have these conversations, it continues to be evident that dentists just think, well, I'm a dentist. I'm here to do dentist things, and I work on teeth. Or if you don't have teeth, I'll make something for you. I don't know. I'm just a dentist.
Yeah.
Maybe they have that shingle that says general cosmetic family dentistry, right? Like, so they're starting to describe what kind of dentist they are, but not really.
Yeah.
That's where it ends. And so because of that, they don't they don't critically analyze the kinds of marketing pitches that do end up in their LinkedIn message or inbox, right? They just think, well, I'm just a dentist and everyone else are just dentists. So I don't know, how do we distinguish ourselves? Spending money on marketing. Now,
Yeah.
what is that marketing doing for you? Who is it targeted at? What is it saying about you? They're not even paying attention to that. They don't
Yeah.
know how to think about that.
100%. I think that the brand equity piece to this, which is I think what you're alluding to, is a big, big deal, especially now with M&A in the dental world, right?
Mhm.
So there are studies out there that if your brand is right, meaning that if you've got a terrific brand, and I don't mean like your logo on your website, that's not branding. Branding is how people feel about you, right, over time. That contributes somewhere between 15 to 20% more when you go through a buyout,
Mhm.
right? So it's totally worth it. But what dentistry has is a lot of transactional marketing tools, dashboards, social media, this and that, right? But what you really need is sort of the brain trust to make them work for you, because some of these things are going to work and some of them are not going to work. And I think that is a challenge when I speak with younger dentists. They think that every marketing modality is going to work.
Mm.
The
Right.
reality is that's a pipe dream. I mean, there is no Harvard business case that says any of this stuff actually works. Marketing is experiential.
Yeah, and it's as I always like to say, business is messy, right? It's trying stuff, failing,
Right.
quickly learning and pivoting. And the dentist mindset is to not do that, right? We're trained, don't pulp out on a tooth. Don't, we measure our success in fractions of millimeters. We're OCD tend to be very type A OCD. And but not to say that that personality can't do well in business, but we have to do a big shift in our thinking when we go from clinical to managing a practice, and certainly marketing and branding, to say we have to be comfortable trying stuff, spending some money sometimes, and not getting a good return on that investment, and then discussing why that might be. Do we
That's
need to
right.
change and our approach, or change our channel, or hey, this is all just not working and we need to move on. So that mentality also is missing, not just the knowledge of what their personal or practice brand is, but also then the comfortability to try some stuff, strategically try
Yeah,
some
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. Look, there is, I think any marketer worth their salt is going to tell you that there is whatever strategy they use, there is a high likelihood of failure in it. I mean, the old adage in advertising, right, is 50% of advertising dollars are lost. We just don't know which 50%.
Hmm,
Right. I
hmm.
mean, to a large extent, that's still true, but there are important analytics now that kind of, and maybe that 50% isn't 50% anymore, right? But it's certainly not 10%,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you have to be, I think to your point, you've got to be comfortable with being an entrepreneur, which means you've got to be comfortable with failing very quickly, understanding what happened and moving on to the next thing.
I love what you just said, because a lot of dentists will anoint themselves as an entrepreneur, and I don't think they know what that really means. And there's many definitions of what an entrepreneur is. I use one very similar to the one you just said. It's
Hmm.
not being afraid to screw up, try to screw up quickly, and try to screw up inexpensively, and
Inexpensive.
try to learn. Test
Yeah.
stuff, lean thinking, lean
Yeah.
business, lean marketing and dentistry. There's ways to do this so that it's not, a really embarrassing or costly failure. But the point is to not be afraid to fail and pay attention to the results. It's running a series of little scientific experiments and gauging the success of it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, it's not being afraid to do that. So, that's so, to get back to the email or the LinkedIn
So,
messages, which is so funny. It's like when I get very generic
yeah.
marketing, I know I can foresee, I can foretell what the kinds of marketing initiatives that those folks perhaps are going to be then offering to me, their brand new client. If
Right.
their pitch to me is so generic, then what are they going to be doing for me? You and I have seen it. There are, so whether it's direct mail, billboards, ads in a penny saver, it doesn't matter. What All of the social media, all of these are just tools, and I've seen so many dentists and their marketing groups use those tools incorrectly, or at least just they use it generically, so it doesn't
Yeah.
stand out. So I get direct mail, or wherever I'm seeing these ads, and they all are variations of the same thing. It's generic stock photos of like people smiling, and there's usually like a list of procedures. We do
Right.
crowns and bridges and implants, and many insurances accepted, and it's just this very generic. There's nothing special. There's no story being told.
Think
It's
about what
meant
you
for
just said.
everyone.
That is the feeling that you're getting from that direct mail piece or that
That's right.
marketing piece. That's the feeling that you're getting from it. And you're an insider,
That's true.
right? So
Yes.
as an insider, I think sometimes we tend to be hypersensitive. I'm hypersensitive to things in marketing.
And I think there are patients, and again, it is hard to take myself out of a dentist and a dentist that thinks about marketing and
Yeah.
business, but I have as
But you're also a person. And that's my
I'm
point,
also
right?
a person.
Like you're right.
I've received these mailers. I've seen these ads that at least look the same. Even if the ad itself may be effective, everyone else is doing it, at least in my area. Look, I should also say every area is different. I'm in Long Island. It's, saturated with dentists, saturated with potential patients. So I'm going to probably be exposed to this a lot more often than a dentist who's looking to market their practice where there's only like 3 other dentists for 100 miles. Okay.
Right.
Right. That's going to be very different. And some of those more, I don't want to say traditional, but more generic, even marketing approaches could actually just work just fine out there.
Yeah, and I think that you're making a great point here because that's why that LinkedIn, that sort of generic approach really doesn't work. Because what I'll get, sometimes when I'm talking to clients, I'll say, well, what's the average spend on, or the ADA said this, or this expert said that. And I'll say, look, if you're in Boston or if you're in Pittsburgh, those costs to acquire, let's say, a patient are going to be vastly different than if you're in New York or San Francisco or in Wichita. So there really isn't a quote unquote average. And by the way, that's a great question. You want to know if there is that kind of stat available. That's great. But the fact of the matter is, healthcare, especially dentistry, is hyper local.
Yes.
Hyper local. So you have to understand, to your point, what's going on locally, what's going on locally with your media, what's going on locally with your social media, with your website. All of that is actually like local behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like local behavior. It is local behavior.
Yeah.
And then you got to tailor the messages as you were just, saying so clearly before.
And to pick the channel and the message that's right for the market,
That's right.
which we've been discussing. So, for example, I'm in Melville, Long Island. It's filled with what I call busy business people. There's national headquarters for Shine is right in Melville, amongst Estee Lauder, Canon, Nikon, Bank of America, all these major. It's like an industrial corporate, area, right? And so we target busy business people, and that's just the internal term we use for that target market. Busy business.
When you say you mean your practice?
My practice. I'm sorry, my practice. We target busy business people, the people that are in my area between the hours of 9 and 5. They're young or seasoned professionals. They're attorneys. They're marketers themselves. They're whatever. Another target group we like is seniors. We have a healthy number of seniors in our immediate area. I'm talking about what our reception area looks like, the hours that we have. I really use a looser definition of marketing. I'm creating a whole experience that can be easily understood and communicated to my target audiences. So kids are not one of my target audiences. We'll treat kids in our practice if they come in, but we're not gearing our practice towards children, right? So, for example, and this has happened, if I had a team member, I had an office manager years ago that came to me and said, "Hey, I found a great deal for some marketing. We only have to spend a couple $100, and we get a banner that has. We have to create the banner too. But then once we create the banner, that's another $500. But we'll create the banner, and then for only $200, we can display that banner at local soccer games at the local school." And I'm like, "That's great. Who are our target markets? Busy business people and seniors, not kids. We're going to save $700. We're going to take that $700. Let's put it towards something else.
Yeah.
Towards the right channels for our right patients." If I create an experience where a senior executive at Estee Lauder, which is right down the block from me, that's who I'm trying to cater to, and seniors doing adult dentistry, advanced dentistry. If they walk into my reception area and there's highlights magazines and broken crayons everywhere, because I'm also trying to cater to kids and I'm all confused, they're going to get a mixed message. Not to say they're going to walk out of the door and not get veneers done with me, but I'm sending a little bit of a mixed message. It's possible to have an advanced cosmetic practice and a kid-friendly practice. It can be done. I'm just saying I'm not doing that, so it doesn't make sense for me to even try.
So what you just said there is actually really interesting, because what you did was you just reallocated certain things. You've got a marketing budget, and the job of your marketing strategist, or your job as a business owner, is to figure out where to get the best return on those dollars. So you're a mutual fund manager, right? And you're going to buy a basket of this and a basket of that stock and a basket of this stock, and there's going to be performance associated with that. What you talked about there, eliminating that $700 and putting it to use elsewhere, because you know where your target market is, you know the demographic, you know the psychographics.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly where the industry really should be moving, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the faster that it could move there, the more efficient and lean these practices become.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Say, let's take that $300 of that $700 and let's host a bagels and coffee networking event in our dental office for our we have plenty of patients who are CPAs, attorneys. They're trying to get new business. Let's become a networking hub. Just help some of our patients network. So we'll bring them together and they all get to network and bagels and coffee on us, right? There's so many creative and fun things you can do once you identify your target markets and what makes you unique to them, the hours that you keep, right? I don't take my lunch at noon because that's when busy people want to come in and get their fillings done, right?
That's right.
Once you start thinking about those things, then I think the marketing decisions become really fun and interesting. And it is buying, media and devoting money to social media. Absolutely. It's a lot of that outbound stuff, but it's also some of the internal things you can do for existing patients to continue to remind them that you are a positive member of the community and that you're doing good things for them.
Well, if you think about it, right? I mean, if you've got an American Express card or a credit card, right, they still market to you. Yeah. Well, why is that, right? Well, the reason is because it's cheaper to upsell an existing customer than it is to get a new customer.
Right.
Right. And so it's really the same situation for dentists because, I think there's I would call it an unhealthy obsession with new patients.
You're absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. Retention is not a sexy number, right? Like there's not a practice management software on the planet, because it's impossible, that can tell you how many patients you were about to lose but decided to stay in a given period of time. It's impossible to know that.
If you focus on, let's say, the lifetime value of a patient, right? We got a new patient. They're with us for this year. They're with us for next year. They referred other patients. Well, what's the value of that? Because, let's say you spent X amount to bring that patient in and they're with you for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Well, that patient is much more valuable than somebody who spent X and they were with you for a year in and out. And I don't know who they're referring and who they're not referring, right? But there is software for that.
Yes, and you can measure, I won't call it patient retention in the sense of they were going to leave, but they decided to stay. What you can measure is, positive reviews online and number of referrals. There are ways to get at that statistic.
But it's work.
Yeah,
and it's not sexy, and it's database work, right? Yeah. And it's not like, hey, let's do social media because we're going to post some stuff and it's cool, right? Yeah. And that other stuff, and that's critical, because if you're not thinking about the patients you have and you're not dealing with them, look, they may leave.
Absolutely. Or if you're not distinguishing yourself enough, if you're trying too hard to be everything to everyone and not trying to be something very special and unique to target groups, then I understand that you would be concerned if a DSO or 10 new solo dentists were to open up in your area, because you're saying, oh gosh, now I got competition. A dentist that opens up down the street from me, unless they have the same unique selling propositions and unless they're going for the same target markets that I am, they're not competition, right? I'm not worried about them. And there are dental practices that have very distinct business models. And I'll name names because I talk to people that work at these places, and they would agree this is public knowledge. The Aspens and the Walmarts, they're not competing for the same kinds of patients that we are, right? Or I say we, that my practice is. They're looking for patients who don't normally go to the dentist, patients who are looking for convenience and value and low cost above many other factors. And that's great. I'm glad someone is servicing that part of the market, right? And we may have a little bit of overlap in our potential patients, but it's not a lot. It's not enough that I would be concerned that if Aspen were to open up across the street from me, that I'd say, oh, there goes the neighborhood. I'm going to get run out of business. Like, no, we're not doing the same thing. Good luck to them. And I wish them the best. And we're going to be able to coexist just fine. As long as you're able to distinguish yourself and do that through proper marketing, working with someone like yourself and do things strategically and thoughtfully. I don't care who opens up across the street. Hey, we're going to be fine.
You brought up a great point. You know that Burger King opens up within 1 mile of a McDonald's. Why do they do that? I mean, we all know, right? Mm-hmm. McDonald's has more money. They do the research. They figure out the location, and Burger King says, wonderful. That doesn't take, it may, right? To your point about Aspen and you before, right? But Burger King does its marketing. McDonald's does this marketing, and there is a market for each type of customer.
Absolutely right.
And
And
that
there's also,
differentiation, to your point before.
yes. Yes, there's a market for both of those customers. And there's also still a market for the really nice high-end steakhouse
The
that's right next
steakhouse,
to them,
right?
because they're
Exactly.
totally different, right? Like
That's
we
right.
could go real different on the spectrum.
That's
So,
right.
I will happily spend 5, 10 times as much as I would spend in a McDonald's at a high-end steakhouse because it's a totally different experience,
That's
right? The
right.
value proposition is they're both offering me food that is meat, but the Wagyu beef burger that I were to get at the high-end steakhouse, I'm going to spend a heck of a lot more than I am for the delicious. I mean, let's admit, McDonald's food is delicious. And so is Burger King. A nice Whopper. Oh, sounds awesome. But I'm going to spend way more on the Wagyu beef burger at the steakhouse because the whole experience, the marketing, everything about it is positioned differently. Now,
Right.
if I were to go into that steakhouse that's trying to be a high-end steakhouse and there was a ball pit next to the bar and a little
That's right.
kiddie area, and there were clowns walking around to tables, like, doing
Yeah.
performances, I'd say, why am I spending so much money here? I'm not going to come back. So
That's right.
there's a disconnect because we're confusing the customer. And I think sometimes dentists can confuse their customers, or at least
And
attract the
that,
wrong people.
oh, 100%. I mean, you think about the folks that are looking for the high-end case, but then when you walk into the office, it's not a high-end experience.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I was at an office years ago, nice dentist, good dentist, knew what he was doing, wanted to do high-end implant cases, but his office was located, on the wrong side of the tracks. It wasn't in a great neighborhood. Parking was terrible. The office decor was very outdated. It was like
Right.
straight out of the 70s. And this guy's pitching people on like $30,000 treatment plans. And if you're going to spend that much money, and he would get it every now and then, but I saw plenty of patients that just walked out of there and never came back. It's like, if I'm going to spend that much money, like, they're in this like dungeon kind of looking office, not in a great neighborhood. There's a disconnect,
That's
right?
right.
Like, dude,
Listen,
buy a new reception area and make it look a little nice if you're going to pitch me 30 grand.
when you get something from American Express, right? You almost feel bad about not opening it.
That's right. Yeah, it's very nice. It's an experience to open it, right?
Exactly. It feels like a wedding invitation that if you threw it out, you'd actually feel terrible about it. And that's by design, right? Because they've done that over years. And what they want to do, and what they have done so successfully, is that they have treated their customers and their potential customers with the highest possible respect
Mhm.
by making sure that at every touch there's that high brand expectation,
Yeah,
right?
because they understand their market, right?
Exactly. So now you get something from not American Express. I don't feel bad about throwing it out,
Yeah,
right? And I
exactly.
don't want to name names. We all get them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that, I think, hits on your point, of making sure you understand who you are, what your value is, but those two things aren't enough. You actually have to take that and translate that into, okay, how do I get patients that I want based on this value to actually come to me? And how do I treat them in such a way where they're never going to leave?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And yes, that is a more comprehensive view of marketing than I think a lot of dentists will pay attention to. And I think once they identify their target markets and think about and maybe make tweaks to their systems and their operations and even just their decor,
The core, right?
to
It's
make sure that everything's in line. Yeah, to open the floodgates on the traditional marketing, the marketing that they're probably aware of, and they'll be able to make better decisions with folks like you to say, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is my messaging. Yeah, I'm when I do this exercise with dentists around the country, when I ask them who's your target market, I hear great things. They say people that go to yoga. I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's a great target market. You're identifying the
That's right.
mentality, and you can start to now put yourself in their shoes and think, what kind of colors and fonts and messaging will resonate with this target market, and what won't, right? You have a better collaboration, I think, with your marketing partner when you're making these decisions. And
Oh,
again, to what we were saying before, not being afraid to try a few things and and screw it up.
Actually, it's funny. I think the Harvard Business Review a couple of years ago published a list of Amazon's failures.
Mm.
I mean, the list went on and on and on. Like it was like doom scrolling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's Amazon? Right?
Yeah.
And we really try to support our clients and say, look, when something doesn't work, that just may mean it didn't work right now because behaviorally something was off, right? I mean, the message could have been off, the medium could have been off, but there was a behavior issue. But that could work in 3 months or 6 months from now. We don't know. So nothing's off the table, but you continue to manage towards what's working and putting aside what's not working, but you don't stop doing the stuff because it's part of your practice management piece.
Yeah, it is. So I say, and I said at the beginning, it's a messy process. It is, but I think a better way to describe it, like what you're saying, it's an iterative process, right? So it's a series of experiments to test a hypothesis. And when we find one that works, great. Now we'll latch on to that. If something doesn't work, we don't necessarily throw it all out. We discuss and have a really interesting conversation on maybe why didn't this work? Timing, whatever it might be. But that's the kind of process I think dentists should be having with their marketing teams is exactly that. Not just I don't think it could be, I'm sure it's possible, but the set it and forget it marketing, I just pay for this ad and patients happen. Yeah, maybe you get lucky with that sometimes. And in your area, for your practice, for your target markets, maybe it does just work for you. But I think those days are changing as there's so many more channels and there's so much noise out there.
The days of dropping marketing bombs are over. And also there is so much noise in this space about what works and what doesn't work, and social media and this, people are genuinely confused. And I think part of that confusion is, people get tired, right? Well, I'm okay, we're going to do that. Right. Okay. Well, if you're going to do that, set a time frame, set up expectations, and please don't go at yourself with vanity analytics. Like, understand what you're measuring, and then figure out if it's working or not. And that's cool. That's okay. But the strategy piece, which is the piece that you're talking about, is incredibly important. And I think it gets discounted because people fall in love with the bells and whistles of the technology, especially social media.
Yeah. And it's sexy to talk about, oh, I've got an Instagram page, I'm doing this stuff. That's great. Yeah, do that. But by the way, the traditional channels of marketing, print, direct mail, they can work too. They absolutely still work. To your point about American Express, they're still sending me stuff in the mail. Right. So
hey, listen,
it's about using the tools correctly.
Why do you get stuff from Google in the mail? I mean,
yeah,
right. Like, theoretically, Google doesn't need to be doing direct mail, but I'm sure you get stuff from Google
absolutely
in your office. Yeah. So 100%. Listen, we're running out of time. I'm glad we had this discussion because it opened up an entire avenue to help dentists become better shoppers, better partners, also with marketing companies. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Abe, thank you. Always a pleasure.
I hope we could do it again.
I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks.